most straightforward arguments against the papacy, any easy to understand resources, responding to arguments like Jesus built church on Peter the rock for low IQ layperson. So
every time Peter talks about the rock or the cornerstone, it's not referring to him. It's referring to the person of Christ. The ancient canons equate the jurisdiction of Rome to other jurisdictions. Every ecumenical council, when they discuss canons relating to bishops and jurisdictions in Rome, there's never any statement of universality in the in the ecumenical canons. So I'm not talking about the ecumenical council's dogmatic statements, I'm talking about the canons. And you see a consistent pattern. You can find the 15-page essay at my website that covers all the examples from all the ecumenical councils of the canons that conflict with Vatican I. Those are easy examples. I mean, the Fifth Council is called to rebuke the Pope Vigilius. We know that now from the Price book, right? Honorius is, condemned as a heretic, not once but 3 times over, and it's not because he made a mistake. He's he was all right, but he actually is called a heretic 3 times over. So he taught theological error. How could the Vatican I view be correct if an ecumenical council can excommunicate and condemn a pope? I mean, that means that the papacy is not indefectible because Honorius defected. I mean, it's very simple. So these are straightforward arguments. Other arguments like in the Middle Ages, the papacy under the Gregorian reforms, even admitted by Roman Catholics. In the 11th century, in the Gregorian reforms, you have a revolution in the papacy. So if, Yves Congar and other people can write books admitting that the papacy underwent a revolution, how can you accuse the Orthodox who want to believe and operate the way things operate in the first 1,000 years of being the innovators or being the schismatics? Is Rome then innovated by their own admissions, by their own theologians? I mean, the other great argument that David has pointed out is that the existence of uniates itself refutes the papacy.
And guess what? A lot of Roman Catholics are just now understanding the implications of this. It took them like 3 years, I think, to realize this. But I'm seeing debates between uniates and Latin Rite Roman Catholics on whether it is acceptable to venerate Saint Gregory Palamas as a saint now, right? Because for years they'd be saying, "Oh, Saint Gregory Palamas is a heretic," but their own church accepted by the authority of the Pope himself, which they cannot deny, that Saint Gregory Palamas is a saint, is a holy theologian, that it's completely allowable to celebrate him. And it's not just Saint Gregory Palamas. If you think that's just it, even Nestorius, Theodore of Mopsuestia, Theodore of Tarsus, the Nestorians, basically, they are also celebrated in the Syro-Malabar and the Chaldean liturgy. So
Exactly. So you've got all of these people that are heretics for centuries, and now they're, quote, saints that Roman Catholics can venerate.
Yeah, and the papacy
it's nothing to do with truth. It's just literally whatever the papacy says at this time becomes truth.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why, since the 1940s, they can now revere people who were for centuries heretics is because of famous uniate historians and writers like Francis Dvornik. He's a uniate priest who, by the way, wrote a giant book on the history of intelligence agencies. Well, he wrote this book in 1948 called The Phocian Schism, which basically rehabilitated Photius. Oh, he's cool now. So the very guy who was like the image of the Orthodox schismatic for 1,000 years. Oh, no, he's cool. He's a saint now. I mean, that alone ought to tell you that the Roman Catholic system is not about theological truth that is objective, that is unchanging. It's an evolving doctrine and theology.
And a lot of them admit this, right? They say,
"Oh, it's okay. So what if it evolves?" Really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe Origen is a saint now, and some of them will be like, "Yeah."
They say they call him a church father already.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if you teach the Trinity anymore.
Mm-hmm. They call Origen a church father already. They call Tertullian a church father already. So there's just one more step left in that direction, and
that's exactly where the perennialism and the natural theology of Vatican II goes.
Exactly. And what it's a lot of it. Another example I'd use to kind of like use against papacy is kind of like the Fourth Ecumenical Council, where the Tome of Leo is hailed as this ex cathedra document on Christology, is not only heavily critiqued by the very bishops that are directly under his jurisdiction, the Illyrian bishops. It was the council itself was skeptical on the document, which is what resulted in the 5-day theological commission ran by the Patriarch of Constantinople, Patriarch Anatolius, cross-referencing the Tome of Leo with the writings of Saint Cyril of Alexandria, right? And this is an argument that Orthodox have historically used against monophysites, but it's an argument we can use against Roman Catholics to show that, well, like, just ask yourselves this, Roman Catholics, can this happen today? Literally, can a pope say in a council, in an ecumenical council that he didn't even call, right? Let's say there's an ecumenical council, the pope didn't even call it, someone else called, and the pope goes and he writes a theological document and he says, this is ex cathedra, you're going to accept this. And then his own bishops say, actually, this is heretical. I'm not going to accept this. You better fix this. Or I have questions about this document. And then the other bishops say, oh, okay, let's cross-reference this with the writings of saints and see whether it makes sense. Imagine, can this happen today in a Roman Catholic Church? Absolutely not. It cannot happen in a Roman, because this is not the ecclesiology of the Roman Catholic Church, right? And people don't really get this. And with the doctrine of development point, so this needs to be made clear, is that the Roman Catholic understanding of doctrinal development is the idea that doctrine, premise of doctrinal development, they use this for icon veneration too, right? The basic premise is that the doctrine that developed in the way that it developed originally was not apostolic. So let me talk about icon veneration, for example. Roman Catholics will literally say, like, and they've admitted this, right? Trent Horn, they've already admitted this. They will say icon veneration is not apostolic. They will say it's not apostolic. It was not supposed to be part of, but it developed logically to icon veneration, and it's legitimate because it makes sense, right? That's the main argument that they use. It just makes sense now. It's the same thing with the papacy, right? The papacy did not really exist in the Vatican I form. It just developed into the Vatican I form. So this is the basic argument of Newmanism. So we as Orthodox, we don't believe in Newman's idea of doctrinal development. When we speak about doctrinal development, we say this doctrine was always apostolic. It is rather that our understanding of this doctrine, while this doctrine remains static, the same as it was established from the get-go, this doctrine is just developed in the sense our understanding or concepts or theological ideas become better over time. This sense of development is not heretical, but the sense of Roman Catholic development where the doctrine itself changes, that is heretical. That is unacceptable. And this is something that, again, Ybarra himself admits in, I think, his debate against Father Patrick. I'm not too sure, but I think he admits this in his debate against Father Patrick. So he admits that the papacy is doctrine developed. So that just ends the debate, because it just means that it's not apostolic. If it is not apostolic, then it's not a true doctrine.
There's a double mind thing going on here, which is difficult, because on the one hand you have, Newman and people arguing for development of doctrine, and then around the same time you have Pius X, the Pope, writing Pacindi Dominici, where he says that the notion of the evolution of dogma is a modernist heresy. So that's the most famous encyclical condemning the modernists, and he basically says that modernism is the conglomeration of all heresies, and it's all the heresies into one. And one of those key elements is that everything is in the process of evolving and moving. You could have never had this without the papacy first innovating and being an evolving institution back in the Gregorian reforms. This is even argued by Roman Catholic theologians now, like Yves Congar in his, I think it's his 900 Years Together or something like that. So admitting that, yeah, we underwent evolution. We underwent massive renovation and change in the church, by which they say this is a good thing. But then by the time of Pius X, when this is being used in, quote, liberal ways, he says, no, we got to get rid of this idea of the evolution of dogma. And they'll try to come up with a million different scholastic to say, evolution is not development. Those are different things. Let me give you a new made up scholastic definition. No, it doesn't work. It's the same principle, because either the dogmas stay the same or they don't.